listening to the Savvy Musician Show with Leah McHenry, and this is your secret weapon for success in the new music industry.
Well, welcome once again to the Savvy Musician Show. This is CJ Ortiz, and I am the branding and mindset coach here at the Savvy Musician Academy. And I am joined once again by Her Eminence, as I love to call her, the lovely Leah McHenry. So good to see you. How you doing?
I'm good, CJ. How are you?
Wonderful. We have fun doing these, don't we?
We do. Yeah. It's always a blast.
We have more fun than we deserve. No, deserve has got nothing to do with it. Today we're going to talk about biggest fears musicians have and how to overcome them. If you were listening to our last episode, we kind of delved into the little bit of the subject of fear in our discussion of a poverty mentality. If you haven't heard that episode, people are raving about it.
That's right.
Go to the archives and go listen to episode 64 on overcoming a poverty mentality. But today we're going to talk about some big fears that musicians have. And because fears, and as we said in that last podcast, Leah, it's what people believe or don't believe that really holds them back. So we want to try and eliminate as much of that as we possibly can. Not just give you the ins and outs of the gory details of how to in terms of online marketing, but also some of the psychology. But we love to do also our student spotlights in these episodes. We're talking about an elite student today, David Williams, who I've had the pleasure of talking to on a couple of occasions. He's from Australia, a band called Welter. And he writes in our elite group, #win. And he says, we are almost at our first $1,000 in sales on our shop. This could not have been possible if it wasn't for this incredible elite academy. We still have so much to learn, but at the same time feel so ahead of the game. Thank you, Leah, and your amazing team for what you do. Words can't express the gratitude. We can't wait for the next 12 months. And as Steven said in a previous post, now is the time to dig deeper and push harder. Cheers to you all.
That's awesome, David. We love that you shared your win.
Isn't that great? If you've never made money with your music online,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, and you've spent some money to get into an elite program and you're hoping the sort of things work. Now, you've seen it. Of course, Lee and I see the interaction with students all the time. I've spent coaching calls with David just on some of his branding stuff early on when he got started. But I see the questions. I've seen him wrestle over his opt-ins and his ads and get frustrated and trying to make things work and then have a breakthrough. And then you get to that next level thing and you get frustrated with that. And so to see this effort and then for him to say, hey, man, we got our first $1,000 online. Yeah. That's not a live event, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. That is selling music merchandise online. And like you said, wouldn't have been possible for the incredible elite academy. Now that may sound like we're tooting our own horn, but guys, no, because I'm staring at a woman right now who did that very thing 100-fold in her own business. And it's those very principles that she teaches in the elite academy. And I'm just going to say this as a byword here. I don't know where you are as a listener. I don't know whether you've just seen an ad, stumbled on this podcast, or you're in maybe the free mastermind group. Maybe you're a Tom student. I don't know where you are, but it's time for you to go to the next level. It's time for you to stop. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that stop you today, but we got to get past these fears. We got to get past your limiting beliefs, and you have to step on yourself. You have to invest in yourself, whether it's a course, our Inner Circle newsletter, jumping from Tom to the elite program. Something needs to happen to get you to move forward. So find out what that is. Go to savvymusicianacademy.com and take advantage of what your next level is. But as I said at the outset, Leah, biggest fears musicians have and how to overcome them. Are musicians laden with fears? Is that even possible?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it sounds like a silly question for us because we see and are dealing and interacting with musicians every day. But if you're a musician listening to this thinking you're the only one almost paralyzed in fear, you need to know that this is really a very common, very normal experience, and that everywhere across the world right now are all terrified and they're all stuck. Sometimes that fear of, we'll talk about the different things people are afraid of, but this fear in general is completely paralyzing you, and it's stopping you from reaching your potential, from doing the thing that you were supposed to do. This is part of your destiny. I believe it's part of your calling. If music is in your life, if it is in your heart and it is in your soul, and you know that you were born to do this and you're not doing it, you're doing a major disservice to the rest of the world. There's people out there, I believe, who are meant to hear your music. And I'm not trying to just be romantic about it.
Right.
I've gotten messages from people. Every year I get messages from people who have said, that song of yours got me through a really dark time. I was suicidal. I was this and that. And you're trying to like flatter me. This is just them telling the story. Your music really got me through that dark time. I get goosebumps thinking about it, because you're just like, holy crap. I mean, I'm just trying to create art here. I had no idea it was going to have this kind of impact on other people in the world. So when I say there's people who are meant to hear your music, I don't care if it's black metal. The studies have been shown that even a lot of people who listen to heavy metal, it makes them feel calm. It doesn't actually make them feel angry. It has the opposite effect. It makes them feel calm and motivated in different things. So whatever music it is you're making, don't think that because you're making something different or obscure or not mainstream that it doesn't have a significant place in people's lives, because it really does.
That's awesome. When I talk about fear, and I talk about fear a lot in my coaching stuff, but I'll often tell people, Leah, that facing your fears means confronting the powerless force that's robbing you of the only life that you've got.
Yeah.
It's important to understand that. You get to the place where you finally confront the powerless force. And I've always said that fear is the most powerful yet powerless force you will ever face. Powerless. It can't stop you. Only you give power. And it's like the scarecrow effect. You know, you put the scarecrow out in the middle of the field. It's obviously not a person, but the crow gives life to the scarecrow. Through fear, we give life to the scarecrows in our life that keep us from feeding on the harvest that we could have in our creative expression, in our music business, in whatever it is that you're doing. There's a harvest there for you, because if you're producing content, if you're producing these, creative expressions that people can enjoy, like Leah said, this is your calling, you're supposed to do this, then the only thing that's going to stop you is going to be fear. And so you're like that crow who gives life to the scarecrow. Fear is a powerless force, but it's still the most powerful, powerless force you're ever going to face. And it's robbing you of the only life you've got. And so I don't never really advise people to be angry, but if you're going to be ticked off about something, well, please be ticked off about that.
Yeah.
Please be ticked off about the fact that something as simple as fear is robbing you of the only life that you've got. That's a tragedy to see. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And I just think about, like, if I had let fear stop me from producing my first album when nobody knew who I was completely at ground zero. Many people know my story, but for those who don't know it, I started with absolutely nothing. No fan base, no contacts, no industry connections, no understanding of the music business. I still really don't. I don't really care anymore. But just no advantages at all. And not only that, I think I was like 8 months pregnant when I sang my first album. So, and I was already a mom of 3 other kids at home. So I was like the least cool rock star ever. Cool ever, like huge pregnant whale trying to sing high notes in the vocal booth and like making this like rock metal-ish type album. I'm like, I'm a joke. Like I feel like a joke right now. And no one's going to care, but that's okay. I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it for anybody. I'm doing it for me. So that's why I did it. But if I had let fear rule me, then we wouldn't have Savvy Musician Academy. This podcast wouldn't exist. My music career wouldn't exist. Those people who were going through dark times wouldn't have heard those songs. So many things, and the future things that will unravel, even now, things that I'm working on, none of these things would really happen if it weren't for, just taking a bold step in a certain direction. And it's going to take boldness to do this. It's going to take guts. It takes guts to be a musician and to put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable in front of the whole world. The internet era is so different than the rest of history where, you put yourself out there, it's 30, 40 people, maybe 100 people or a few thousand people. At the end of the day, they go home, don't forget about you. And now the internet's forever. Anything you put out there is there to stay, not to mention the trolls that are out. I mean, there's so many, it feels like a much bigger deal because it is. And at the same time, it's the biggest opportunity that we've ever had. And so it does take guts to put yourself out there. What I can tell you is that if you do have fear, you need to want what it is that you want more than the fear. It has to outweigh the fear. That's all it is. And I spent a lot of time studying successful people, reading a lot of books by successful people. And I found out, and this should comfort you, that everybody's scared. Everybody's terrified. The only difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people do it anyway.
Right.
That's the only difference between the two. They feel the same emotions. The successful people, they're also afraid of rejection. They're also afraid of failure. They're also afraid of success. They're also afraid of all kinds of things happening. We can talk about those specifics, but they do it anyway.
Right.
So they just have, and I don't know what is the missing ingredient. I think it's just they're willing to take a risk.
Well, I think what you said earlier, to me, it's the crux of all of this, which is your scales are out of balance. And any sort of pain in life is that. It's scales out of balance. And we all want justice, which means equalizing the balance. So think of that pair of ancient scales. So if you're focusing so much on the pain of what it is that you're afraid of, then your scale is lopsided. So we have to put something on the other side of the scale to even it out. And it's what you just said, which is, focusing on the thing that you really want to do, which is why how you described your own personal story, I think, which is so important and such a great example, because out of your step, even though we're seeing through a glass darkly, you know what I mean? You didn't have a full semblance of where you were headed. You didn't know where things were headed. There was so much out there. You just were going to take a step, right, on yourself, believe in yourself, and take a step out for yourself past your fear. But out of that came Savvy Musician Academy, several albums, hundreds of thousands of people and fans all over the world, changing the lives of musicians. And I mean, you name it. And you're still not even. So,
No.
It's like we can't see everything contained in a seed of what is potential, but we know at least it can produce a forest. So the more you meditate on the fact that so much can come out of your investment in yourself, so much can come out of you doing, what you fear, then the more you think about that and the more you can envision that, then the more you're going to throw weight on the other side of that scale. And suddenly that pain from fear is not so painful anymore. The greater pain will be, I want what I want. And the fact that it's not there yet. You haven't put that album out yet. You haven't done the things that you said you were going to do. And that's, again, it's a powerless force, but move forward into it knowing that, like Leah described, so much came out of that simple step of faith, we'll call it, that she took. And it continues to grow. It continues to work for her, because with each new challenge, with each new barrier, she's got to push past fear again, right? We all have to do that. And it's, the ongoing fear of failure. You and I talk a lot about business, and Leah is not just all about music. She has of interests. And so she's often, telling me about little things that she's doing on the side or thinking about doing and whatnot. We were talking about something earlier. Without going into the details of it all, I thought it was just a great example of, again, just putting yourself in a position where you've got to overcome, the potential resistance that comes naturally from fear, fears of failure, fears of success, etc.
That's right. I won't get into it too much now, but basically I was trying to think of ways I can teach my kids about business. And I know that with kids, since we homeschool, it's got to be hands-on. They've got to have some kind of a a stake in it, some kind of ownership, some kind of expression. So we're coming up with some craft ideas and things like that that we can do together. And I'm like, this is really going to be fun. And I could see it actually taking on a life of its own. Share more in the future once we kind of get things off the ground. I'll share about that story when the time is right. You still face the same things. It's going from idea, hey, I've never done this before, I don't know anything about it, I better start researching, to from that idea to, okay, now I'm going to take an action. Let's see, what supplies do we need? Let's go to the craft store. Let's get what we need. Putting some skin in the game right out of the gate. And then testing, a whole bunch of testing. We'll find out what works, if it's going to work out the way we think it's going to. And we'll probably have some failures, then we'll put it out there and we're going to learn together. And this is, again, teaching my kids, and I get to learn with them, which is going to be super fun. And then I get to teach my kids about marketing. We get to probably put something up on a Shopify store, and I get to teach them about this, that, and the other thing. But the whole thing is like, could it fail? Yeah. Could it also succeed? Yes, it could. I mean, I have an advantage now that I never had before, which is I understand online marketing. This is what I've always been telling our students this whole time, especially in our elite program. And even for those in the TOM program, you understand online marketing. You can sell anything. You can sell handmade soap. You can sell Kleenex. It doesn't even matter what it is. If you understand those fundamentals and those principles, anything can work for you now because you understand it. So you have an advantage over everybody else who's just putting whatever stuff they made in their garage on Etsy and think that, well, the platform has the customer, so I don't have to do anything. That's the big difference. And so my kids are going to get a hands-on experience learning about research, taking ownership in something, risk, putting it out there. I mean, do I sit around thinking about all the ways it could fail and all the ways that we could get screwed and the way we could lose our money from, the supplies we invested in? Like, if I did that, what do you think the outcome would be?
Right.
I mean, there are people that this is what's tripping them up. They're just thinking about all the ways it could go wrong, all the ways they could get screwed, all the ways that it won't work out. And there is something to be said about what you dwell upon is probably going to happen, right? You don't want to sit there and dwell on things that you don't want. You should instead dwell on the things that you do want to happen. And this actually, I did have a nice experience with this, my first ever live speaking engagement that I had. And it was, I do so many live events online, but in person is like a totally different thing. And I was really nervous. I had a lot of nerves, like just in my stomach. Like it was weird because my mind was saying one thing, my body was doing something else. And it took me a while to get control of my body. And so we're talking about fear here. So one of the things I want people to know is that I spent quite a bit of time leading up to this speaking event, visualizing and almost like frame by frame, picturing how exactly I wanted it to go, how I wanted myself to feel in the moment. So instead of feeling like I had major like butterflies in my stomach, I imagined myself feeling completely confident and like, I'm at home right now. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm at home. This is normal. There's nothing unusual about this. So I just rehearsed that feeling over and over and over. I wake up and I would just spend 20 minutes just laying there doing that. And I would get my body to a point where that adrenaline and stuff would leave. And it would come back later in the day, but I would just kind of go back to that place. And it was really cool. This speaking engagement, I wrote down a list of how I wanted to feel afterwards. Of like, when I'm done, these are the things that I want to feel. And I was just being very intentional and very purposeful in how I want my body to react and what I want my brain to do. It was really cool because the speaking engagement went almost exactly how I imagined it to go, almost exactly. And like, it was, the first 30 seconds was like, oh, holy crap, and then it was gone. And then it was like, I'm at home now. Okay. I've done this 100 times in my mind. And this is not a new concept. I think, Tony Robbins and NLP or whatever these things are called, I'm pretty sure this is like really old. I know they do that, Olympic athletes that rehearse mentally, golfers and stuff before they ever get onto the field. So I think that it's really powerful. I'm just like, I'm amazed at what the brain can do. I'm amazed at how powerful the mind is. So, when it comes to fear and like taking risks and being uncomfortable, there's a lot of layers to this. Number one, I think you need to first believe that it's not going to control you, or make the decision that it's not going to control your outcome. It's not going to control your decisions. It's not the end all of your future. You can have fear, you can experience it. Like I said, my body was doing one thing, my mind was doing another, but I didn't let my body make the decision.
Right.
I could have canceled the speaking engagement because my body was freaking out. I had butterflies that I couldn't stop. That would be dumb. So, that's a big one, is do not let the fear make the decision. Your brain needs to make the decision, and then you can train your body to do what you want it to do after the fact.
Again, this is something that happens in the mind, and so that can be changed. If what you are afraid of was actually real, if the scarecrow was actually real, then there's something to be afraid of. But the farmer is relying on the fact that the crow can't tell the difference between reality and imagination. So fear is obviously based in the imagination, which is why we can scare ourselves to death. We can imagine, we torment ourselves with our imagination. And so you can hear it's thunder and lightning outside, and the lightning's flashing, and suddenly the coat rack looks like there's somebody in the room. Well, what happens? Your heart rate goes up.
Mm-hmm.
Your body temperature increases, right? You have
cortisol.
Actual, right, physical changes to something that's not even. So, two people can approach an airplane or a roller coaster or whatever. For one person, that roller coaster releases endorphins because they love that experience. The other person is releasing adrenaline and cortisol.
Yeah.
Because they're scared to death of it. They're going to experience the same physical thing. They're both going to be rocked the same way. They're both going to go the same speed. It's the exact same roller coaster, but their bodies release completely different chemicals, not based on anything that's tangibly real, simply based on what is going on in their mind. That's the power of fear. And you want to move into those fears. You want to move into the thing that you're afraid of, because again, it is a powerless force. And probably, the two ones that people most know about, Leah, are the fear of failure and the fear of success. The one that we understand, I think, the best is the fear of failure, as you described it. And I think one reason why people are afraid of failure is because they begin with this starting point that they are a loser. You know what I mean? And that they have made too many mistakes. They've had too many failures. That's the way they see their narrative. So they're afraid to try something too big because they feel that they will fail, and that failure will prove what they've always told themselves,
right,
that they are a loser. So they're scared of that judgment. Fear of success has a similar form of judgment, because you're afraid at that point, not of failure, but you're afraid of the criticism that success will bring, because you're putting yourself out, especially with the stuff that you teach, where, somebody is, creating this social media following and engagement, and they're doing Facebook Live videos, and they're, sharing their heart, that sort of thing. They're scared to death of the trolls. They're scared to death of the critics. They're scared. When we see this in the elite group, where someone is getting negative comments and they're asking us, what to do about that. We had to get past that as people being online a long time ago.
That's right.
And there is that fear element there, whether it's a fear of failure in front of others, which confirms the fact that you're a loser, or a fear of success, where you're afraid of the criticism.
With fear of success, I also think that there could be a fear of screwing it up once you have a little bit of success. I can speak to that one. When we had some explosive success and growth with Savvy Musician Academy, like immediately after we launched it, it was very unexpected. It was the last thing I expected. In fact, I had no idea that it would resonate the way it did. Very strange experience to have. And because we had struggled in our marriage and financially for so long, and because I come from a background of never having money or anything, and then this explosive growth, the first feeling I had was not like, oh, we won the lottery. Far from it. It was, screw this up. I don't want it. Like, now there are customers depending on us. We have so much responsibility now. There's that. And then I also had this weird feeling that came on me. Like, I feel like something bad is going to happen now. Like, I don't know what that was. That was weird. And I was like, and I couldn't shake it for like 6 months. It was just like this explosive growth. And then that must mean something bad. Like, I don't even enjoy it for a second, Leah. Don't even enjoy it all. And I feel like maybe that's a little devil on my shoulder or something, but it was like, don't even enjoy any of this because it's all going to be taken from you tomorrow. And so there's a weird thing that happens. And I don't know if it's just in creative people or all entrepreneurs, but I found out later on that this is not unique to me, that a lot of people do experience that. So it is a fear of screwing it up. It's a fear of like, especially if you have any success that's rather quick. And so, some people in our programs, like, they are experiencing some quick growth, and you just think, oh geez, like, I've never actually talked about this before publicly or just like delve into it. And I'm sure there's a lot of layers underneath that one particular fear of it's all going to go away. But I think there is something to be said about a fear of success there. So I was never afraid to be successful.
Right.
It was more of like, I don't want to ruin things. I don't want to disappoint people. I don't want to be a bad steward of any of what we have, of this company, of our staff. Like, all of a sudden it requires you to level up to a new place in your character. And if you're not prepared for that, I think that's scary.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think the key word you just said there is character, which is part of the problem with overnight successes.
Yeah.
Is that they don't have the character to sustain that sort of growth. The courses that you teach, specifically this Elite Academy, are good because there's a process to it. It's not easy. We mentioned David Williams at the outset about some of the struggles that he had and he voiced as he was working through the process. But what it does is it gives you this sort of appreciation for the growth that you experience in anything that takes a long time to achieve, because it gives you then that character to sustain that success. We don't trust ourselves, so it is ultimately coming back to that sense of insecurity, which is why, again, you have to have a firm belief in two fundamental things. Number one, that there are principles that exist in this world to create any desired outcome that you have.
Yeah.
If you're dreaming about sending a rocket into space, or if you're dreaming about whatever it may be, the principles are there to achieve any outcome that you want, especially selling music online. So the principles exist to achieve any outcome that you want. And then secondly, you have to believe that you're fully able to apply those principles consistently to create that outcome. If you doubt either one of those, right? If you say, no, I'm really good at what I do, but the universe is just against me, that's not going to work. Or if you say, no, I know the principles are out there and they work, but I don't trust myself, well, then that's not going to work either. You've got to be fully convinced that the principles exist, and you've got to be fully convinced that you have the power and the capacity to do it. And I guarantee you that you do. You might say, well, CJ, Lee, I haven't ever done it in the past. So I've tried before and then I give up, or I tried before I get discouraged. I tried before and I fell off the wagon, got off course, whatever it may be. Well, so what? I mean, if I could show up to your house every day and point a gun to your head, I could get you to do everything you needed to do to become a billionaire. Right? Well, I'm not going to show up every day, but what it tells you is you have that potential. What you don't have necessarily is the pressure or the motivation or whatever it takes to get willpower, right, to enact that out. And so again, that makes sense. So CJ, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is there's good news, because we can, like, as we said before, we can change you. If the musical gods are just against you, if the powers that be, if the powers of the force just hate you, going to block your success no matter how hard you try or how good you are, if the universe is against you, well, then we're helpless. We're hopeless. There's nothing that we can do. So What's going to have to happen then for you is a simple change in your beliefs. Fear is the most powerful yet powerless force you're facing, and don't let it rob you of the life that you've got.
We're done here now.
That settles that.
Yeah, no, that's so good. It's so true. And knowing that, I'll just, one last point here, you're going to screw up. You're going to mess it up. It's not going to go well all the time. And just be okay with that. Just get over it. I accept the fact that in some future speaking engagement, I'm going to screw up. I fumble on my words sometimes. Sometimes I think one thing in my mouth doesn't work correctly. Whatever. Who cares? Right. At the end of the day, nobody freaking cares. Mm-hmm. And I think if we realize that people don't think about us as much as we think they do, we would do a whole lot more.
Isn't that funny? That is so funny. Well, guys, listen, I know we've kind of gotten psychological on you the last couple of episodes, but I think this stuff is so necessary. You could achieve tremendous success with half of the stuff Leah teaches you, but you can't do anything with 100% of what she teaches you if you're stopping yourself. And so that's why psychology here is just so important. And let me just say again, we get so many great reviews from you guys, and so we're kind of addicted now. So we want to hear more from you guys. So please take the time right now to go and leave us a review on whatever player you're listening on. Give us some stars if they give you that option. Go into the group if you're in our free mastermind group or in our student group for Tom or even Elite. Please tell us, give us feedback. And if there's something you'd like for us to cover, maybe you have some good ideas for a show, feel free to leave that as well. But always a pleasure, Leah. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, guys, and take care.
This episode was sponsored by the Superfan System Elite program here at Savvy Musician Academy. If you are looking to scale your existing music business and you're looking to get into advanced digital marketing, such as email marketing, funnels, e-commerce, Facebook ads, and more, and you're looking to build a real profitable online music business, book a call with our team at www.callsma.com. We would love to speak with you for about 30 minutes and see how we can help you. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more episodes, and we'll see you next time.